Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Fitzmaurice from the Central Office, and I'll be your host for today's webinar on cybersecurity. Your microphones and telephones are currently muted to eliminate background noise during the program. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. To ask a question, type it into the question box on your control panel, or if you have a working microphone or have dialed in, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon on your control panel, and I'll unmute you. Today's program is being recorded and will be available through WebMQS in the Shared Resources section. And there are handouts for this webinar. You can access them via your webinar control panel on the handouts pane. I'll also put them into Shared Resources afterwards. And I'd like to thank our Mohawk Valley SBDC for arranging this webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm pleased to introduce Sem Ponnambalam. Sem is co-founder and president of XAHIVE, a cybersecurity company founded to fulfill the need to provide safe, secure cybersecurity solutions in the ever-expanding internet-based communications space. And Sem, you might remember her from our staff training this last year. She did present at staff training. And with over 18 years of experience in the private and public sectors, Sem has been instrumental in building relationships between XAHIVE and Canadian and U.S. governments, trade accelerators, hospitals, and universities. She has lectured and facilitated introductions to cybersecurity governance workshops and courses for businesses, associations, universities, and governments, both in Canada and the United States. Sem was a 2017 GTO delegate, and panelist at the World Economic Forum. And Sem will be presenting a webinar for our clients coming up in February, and I'm going to forward that invitation to everybody later today. So let's go ahead and hand it over to Sem. Welcome, Sem.
Oh, good morning. Thanks so much, Kathy. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to first off thank the Mohawk Valley Small Business Development Center and of course, Kathy and the Entry Skills and Webinar team for having organized this webinar. First off, I just wanted to inform you that XAHIVE offers a comprehensive secure communications tool. We also offer cybersecurity governance and assessment services and cybersecurity education training as well. XAHIVE is also excited to work closely with the Thinkubator based in Utica, New York. So New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced on September 13, 2016, that a new first-in-the-nation regulation had been proposed to protect New York State from the increasing and persistent threat of cyber attacks. This regulation, which came into effect March 1st of last year, applies to banking, insurance, and other financial services organizations that fall under the purview of the New York State Department of Financial Services. The regulation includes a comprehensive list of requirements for protecting information systems from cybersecurity threats and unauthorized access of non-public information. The regulation comes in the wake of the Securities and Exchange Commission and other federal financial services regulations increased focus on the financial industry's cybersecurity practices. The objective of this webinar is to bring your attention to this new cybersecurity compliance requirements under the regulations. This morning, I'll quickly go through the regulation, who the regulations affects, the key requirements, the penalties for non-compliance, and key limited exemptions and dates. As many of your clients may fall within this category, either as a small business or as a third-party vendor, it is very important for you to ensure that your clients are aware of these requirements. So the regulation is created to provide a basic foundation upon which covered entities can design and develop a robust program to address any identified risks. The regulation is designed to protect both non-public information of individual consumers, and the integrity of the state's financial services industry. It provides flexibility for each organization to develop a program that is designed to assess and control covered entities' specific risks, as well as any new technological advancements. It is recommended that organizations should analyze these new cybersecurity regulations carefully to ensure that their existing programs cover the minimum requirements outlined. So cybersecurity incidences are not only increasing in number, but they're also becoming progressively destructive and target a broad array of information and attack vectors. There are 3 times as many security incidences among banks, credit unions, insurance companies than any other sector. Financial sector is highly targeted by cyber criminals for 2 main reasons. First, they hold funds and financial resources. And second, they hold private account information on consumer and commercial entities. In recent years, cyber criminals have used online banking and payment systems and have compromised ATMs to transfer money directly from financial institutions' accounts to their own accounts. Similarly, insurance companies make lucrative targets for cyber criminals because they store and transmit vast amounts of personally identifiable and personal health information from both large employee base as well as a large numbers of clients. So it must be noted that large banks are now investing quite a bit of money into their cybersecurity programs. So it's becoming much more difficult for cyber criminals to penetrate. So what they've decided to do is target large institutions by going after the easier targets. For example, small insurance brokers, credit unions, small to medium-sized banks, small hedge funds, and third-party vendors of these organizations. Please note that the New York Financial Institutions fact sheet, which Kathy had pointed out earlier, will provide you with specific examples. So the regulation requires companies to have a robust cybersecurity program designed to ensure the security of the covered entity's information remains secure. This means there must be periodic risk assessments meant to identify and evaluate risks. The program must effectively protect information systems and non-public information, detect, respond, and recover from cybersecurity events, and adhere to all reporting obligations. Under the regulation, a business is required to create and maintain written policies and procedures to protect their organization's information system and non-public information based on the risk assessment of their business. The regulation requires each covered entity to appoint a Chief Information Security Officer responsible for managing and implementing the business's cybersecurity program and enforcing its cybersecurity policy. The CISO is also responsible for developing and presenting a written report to the board of directors on at least an annual basis. In addition, each covered entity must utilize cybersecurity personnel sufficient to manage the covered entity's cybersecurity risks and perform or oversee the core cybersecurity functions. Businesses need to ensure that third parties are capable of adhering to new cybersecurity requirements and implement contractual terms to enforce these requirements. Each entity will be required to conduct due diligence on third-party service providers and perform annual assessments on third-party cybersecurity practices. Additionally, covered entities are required to include provisions around encryption, multi-factor authentication, and breach notification in their contracts with third parties. A business is required to establish a written incident response plan for responding to and recovering from cybersecurity events. Businesses should reevaluate their incident response plans to ensure that they meet the new requirements. This includes establishing the manner in which plans are improved as required after incidences have occurred. To protect unauthorized access to non-public information, the regulation requires the use of multi-factor authentication for any individual accessing the covered entity's internal networks from an external network. All covered entities must implement encryption controls based on mandatory risk assessments to protect non-public information held or transmitted over external networks. Such controls must be reviewed and approved by the CISO on an annual basis. A business must also meticulously assess the risks associated with their information system sufficient to inform the design of the cybersecurity program. Risk assessments should be updated to address changes to the entity's information system. Under the regulation, businesses are also required to conduct penetration testing on an annual basis, and vulnerability assessments should be performed biannually, both of which are based on the business's risk assessment. A covered entity must notify the Department of Financial Services of any act or attempt to gain unauthorized access to or disrupt or misuse its information system or information stored on that system. Notifications must occur as promptly as possible, but in no event later than 72 hours from the discovery that a cyber event has occurred. In addition, covered entities will be required to submit an annual compliance certificate to the Department of Financial Services by February 15th of each year. The regulations must be enforced by the Department of Financial Services superintendent pursuant to existing authority available under New York law. Enforcement authorities include the ability to issue a consent order, impose a civil money penalty, or enter into a written agreement with a covered entity under the New York banking law, and relevant provisions of the New York insurance law and New York financial services law. Covered entities whose certifications prove to be incorrect could provide the basis for the department or consumers to make claims against banks, insurers, and other financial services firms for breach of such certification. And individual civil and criminal penalties can arise from intentionally making false statements to the department. Further details for the key limited exemptions, please refer to section 500.19. It's important to note there are different exemptions for these entities. However, it is important to reiterate that small, medium enterprises are viewed by cyber criminals as an entry point into a larger, more lucrative target. Many SMEs have a direct and indirect business relationship with larger businesses. It has been reported that cyber criminals are focusing on SMEs as a gateway into larger businesses. Since SMEs' cybersecurity frameworks and defenses are weaker than those of larger businesses. According to recent cybersecurity reports, over 71% of breaches go undetected. Many SME executives and managers assume that information security is strictly an IT issue. Rather, managers and executives should think more holistically about cybersecurity solutions. SMEs must realize that cybersecurity is a business issue and must be considered as part of the business's overall corporate strategy. Once an SME is breached, on average, they go out of business within 6 months. In terms of the timelines, as you could see, this came into effect in March of last year. But what we really need to focus on are the following dates. February 15, 2018, where covered entities are required to submit their first certification of compliance. March 1st, 2018, covered entities are required to have processes in place to establish periodic penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, conduct periodic risk assessments of information, use multi-factor authentication or risk-based authentication, provide regular cybersecurity awareness training, and deliver an annual report by the CISO to the board of directors on the cybersecurity program and any risks. September 3rd, 2018, covered entities are required to be compliant with the following requirements: maintain records and audit trails, establish and follow guidelines for application security, limit data retention, and establish proper procedures for safe data disposal. Monitor and detect unauthorized access of sensitive information and encrypt data in motion and at rest. And March 1st, 2019, covered entities are required to create and apply security policies to third-party providers accessing their data. So next is just a slide which identifies some of the main resources. The first link is actually the regulation itself. The second one is where entities can submit their certification requirements. And the third link is actually the FAQs section. And thank you for joining me today to learn more about the New York cybersecurity regulations. Now I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sem. Do we have any questions? Roxanne would like you, Sem, could you please recap who this applies to?
This applies, in your case, it would be anyone who falls, I'll just go back here, who falls within the categories listed there. Sorry. Right here, sorry, on this slide. Oh, here we go. So anyone who's within the financial services and insurance, health insurers, and folks who fall within, who also provide third-party services as well.
Thank you, Roxanne. And Roxanne also wanted to point out that the timeline slide is excellent, and that would be good to share with clients that need to know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. Miriam, you have your hand raised. Did you have a question? And I did unmute you, or did I? I'm not hearing you, Miriam. You might. There. Okay, there. I think you've self-muted yourself, Miriam, so if
I
you,
don't know what I did. Okay, can you hear me now?
yeah, I can.
Okay, where it says service contract providers, does that mean anybody providing a service that might have sensitive information on their clients?
Yeah, as long as they don't fall within the limited exemption portion. It depends on how big the organizations are, right? So, because I'm not sure who the specific service provider is, but if they are working along the financial services value chain and they don't fall within the categories that are listed on this slide, then it does apply for them.
So would the school fall under this category because they do the financial aid for the students? Are they required to
You know what? That's
file?
an excellent question.
Because we all work within universities,
Oh my
so all the
gosh, yeah.
students,
Well, first of all, they do collect a lot of data just outside of this itself.
so
If
the
they don't
social
fall within
security
the
numbers, financial aid,
yeah,
everything.
yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I didn't see it listed. I would have to go back, but what I would recommend is for everyone is to look at the section 500.19. That would identify any of the folks that are exempt. But Miriam, if you want to send me, do you have my contact info? Send me an
No.
email, and then I can send you the response once I look into that
Yeah,
further.
because I'm saying third party and I'm saying I'm in a school, so we're a third party.
Yeah, well, that's an excellent question. Let me look into that. And if you'd like to just send me an email, it's on the screen. Feel free to do so. I will be more than happy to get back to you with the answer. If you can give me about 48 hours so I can look into it and get back to you because I don't want to give you incorrect info.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam, for that question. And Roxanne had also typed in example of the last bullet, third-party vendors. So
Yeah.
I think that was answered. So thank you, Roxanne. Does anybody else have any questions or any comments? And
I just
again, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point out, I don't know if anyone's had an opportunity to open up the fact sheets. Because if there are any questions related to that as well, I know you probably are just looking at it, but just wanted to let you know that under the New York Financial Institutions fact sheet, it actually goes into further details as to what to do before a breach, what to do during, and what to do after. So that is very, very helpful for a lot of your clients.
And those fact sheets, again, you can download right now from the GoToWebinar control panel on the handouts pane. And Roxanne said that February 8th webinar for clients will be a webinar similar to what was done at staff training, basic introductory vulnerabilities, steps to take to mitigate threats.
Yeah.
And I'll forward that invitation out later today to everybody so you can send that on to your clients. And again, that's a basic cybersecurity webinar that Sem will be doing for our clients. And it's similar to what she did at staff training. Anybody? Go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing. In terms of something else that I am going to be bringing up with during the client presentation is business email compromise. It is a huge issue that's affecting businesses of all sizes. So it's very important, regardless of whether the folks fall within the financial value chain or not. This affects any business or anyone who pretty much uses emails anyways. So it's something for you to keep in mind. I will be touching on that topic during the client presentation, but I just think it's very important for you to go through that and share that with your clients as well, because there are steps in there on what people should do to protect themselves just from being compromised via email through phishing and other means.
All right. Well, I don't see anybody else with questions or any comments, so we can go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you again, Sem, so much for taking the time to present to us. I appreciate it. And thank you everybody else for joining us today.
Thank you very much.